It was the dawn of April 12, 1861. In front of a small fort called Fort Sumter in South Carolina, 50 Confederate cannons were ready to fire. In that very moment, the history of the United States was about to change forever. This was not just a war between armies. It was a war for the very soul of the nation. This is the story of the American Civil War, the bloodiest conflict ever fought on U.S. soil. A fratricidal war, North against South, brother against brother, neighbors suddenly turned enemies. Historical context. To understand why this war broke out, we must go back to mid-19th century America, a country split into two irreconcilable worlds, divided not just by borders, but by completely opposing worldviews. In the North, an industrial and modern economy, factories producing textiles, tools, and weapons, railroads cutting through forests and connecting distant cities, banks and trade fueling unprecedented growth. In the South, vast cotton and tobacco plantations stretching to the horizon, built on a single brutal institution: slavery. Without it, the entire Southern economy would have collapsed. The North saw slavery as a moral stain and an obstacle to progress. Every day, news of the cruelties inflicted on slaves fueled political debates and tension. The South, on the other hand, saw slavery not only as an economic necessity, but as the cornerstone of their way of life and cultural identity. In 1860, the election of Abraham Lincoln was the spark that ignited tensions already at their breaking point. Lincoln did not intend to immediately abolish slavery where it already existed, but he opposed its expansion into the new Western territories. For the Southern states, this was unacceptable. It was the beginning of the rupture. Within months, 11 states declared secession and formed the Confederate States of America, with Richmond as the capital and Jefferson Davis as president. The Union, under Lincoln, could not accept the disintegration of the country. The countdown to war had begun, and no one could stop it. The beginning of the war. On April 12, 1861, at first light, Confederate cannons opened fire on Fort Sumter. The sky above Charleston filled with smoke and fire, and with that first shot, the American Civil War officially began. At first, many believed the conflict would last only a few weeks. They imagined quick skirmishes, swift negotiations. Instead, it lasted 4 years and caused over 620,000 deaths, more than all other American wars combined up to the 20th century. The country had changed. War was no longer an episodic event. It was a cataclysm sweeping through families, villages, and entire cities. Brothers found themselves on opposing fronts. Childhood friends looked at each other with suspicion and distrust. Decisive battles. Antietam, the bloodiest day. In September 1862, at the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history unfolded. In just one day, over 22,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. Blood mixed with mud, and the birdsong was drowned out by the roar of rifles and cannons. There was no clear victor, but the battle allowed Lincoln to announce the Emancipation Proclamation, transforming the war from a territorial dispute into a moral and political struggle. The freedom of enslaved people became central to the conflict, and millions began to understand that the nation's very destiny was at stake. Gettysburg, the turning point. In July 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg marked a decisive turning point. For 3 days, over 160,000 soldiers clashed in a titanic struggle across hills and open fields. Cannon fire echoed for miles, and the smoke of gunpowder blotted out the sun. The Union's victory stopped the Confederate advance northward and reversed the war's momentum. After Gettysburg, Lincoln delivered the famous Gettysburg Address, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom. From that moment, the war was no longer only about national unity, but a moral crusade for the abolition of slavery and a future of equality. A modern war. The American Civil War was the first great modern conflict. For the first time, technology radically changed the way war was fought. Rifled guns, more accurate and deadly, allowed strikes at unprecedented distances. Artillery devastated fields and encampments. Trains moved thousands of men and supplies quickly, while the telegraph enabled generals to send orders in real time. Industry and logistics mattered more than any single general. And here, the North had an overwhelming advantage. Its factories produced weapons, uniforms, and ammunition in quantities unimaginable for the South, forced to rely on limited stocks and slow transportation. The Emancipation Proclamation. In 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in the rebellious states free. It was not just a moral act, it was also a political and military strategy. Thousands of African Americans enlisted in the Union Army, fighting for their freedom and a new beginning. Every battle became a struggle for humanity, and the face of the war changed forever. The final years and the end. By 1864, the Union had gained definitive control. General William Tecumseh Sherman devastated the South with his march to the sea, destroying railroads, crops, and supply lines. Confederate cities fell one after another, and resistance weakened. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was over, but peace carried deep pain. Millions of families were destroyed, entire generations decimated. A few days later, Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. He never saw America reborn, and the task of rebuilding a divided nation fell to the survivors. The legacy of the war. The Civil War changed the United States forever. Slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment, laying the foundation for a new idea of freedom and equality. Federal power emerged strengthened, and the nation was, in a sense, born again. But the scars, social, economic, racial, did not heal easily. Tensions between North and South remained alive, some still visible today. The wounds of battlefields, plantations, and destroyed villages left deep traces in the collective memory. The two bullets, meeting in flight. Among the many stories from this war, there is one that seems straight out of a novel. It is said that during a battle, two bullets, one from the north and one from the south, collided in mid-air and became stuck together. Some museums do display fused bullets, but the truth is uncertain. The odds of two shots meeting in flight are almost nil. Many of these artifacts may have joined later, at low speed on the ground. But it is a powerful image, two bullets colliding head-on, like two halves of the same nation destroying each other, symbolizing the drama of a fratricidal war. The meaning. This war was not just a struggle for power. It was a battle to decide what kind of country the United States would become. One trapped in the past, or one capable of change, evolution, and looking to the future. It was fought by millions of men and women, some for freedom, others to defend a world that was disappearing. All, however, were swept up in a conflict larger than themselves. More than 150 years later, the American Civil War still speaks to us, not only about history, but about identity, memory, and division. Because some battles never truly end. They change form and continue to influence the present. If this story moved you, help me share it. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next episodes. History is not made only of dates and battles. It is made of people, choices, and consequences. And it deserves to be told with depth.